endless silence of the Mongolian steppe, a storm was rising, one that would swallow empires whole. From the ashes of betrayal and exile emerged a man with nothing, no army, no title, no mercy. He was not chosen by fate. He forged his own destiny with blood, fire, and iron. The world called him a barbarian, but history would remember him as the architect of empire. How does an abandoned slave rise to command the largest land empire the world has ever known? This is not a story of conquest alone. It is the birth of order from chaos. This is the legend of Genghis Khan. Power was a currency of blood and iron, and the steppe was its merciless market. Temujin was only 9 when betrayal became his first teacher. His father Yasuge, a minor chieftain, was poisoned by rivals. And with his death, the fragile protection of clan and name vanished overnight. Abandoned by his people, Temujin's family was cast into the wilderness. Starving, hunted, forgotten. In that frozen desolation, survival itself became his first campaign. He learned that bloodline meant nothing without loyalty, that strength was not inherited, but forged. Captured by the Taichud, enslaved, and locked in a wooden collar, he was reduced to property. Yet his will remained unbroken. Under the veil of night, he escaped, not as a victim, but as a strategist reborn. From that moment, he no longer waited for destiny. He built it. He sought out allies, not by blood, but by purpose. Togrul, Khan of the Karait, and Jamuka, a brother bound by oath. When his wife, Berta, was stolen by the Merkit, he moved heaven and earth to bring her back. That rescue was more than a personal victory. It was his first act of leadership, a declaration that a new power had risen on the steppe. The boy who was once a slave had begun to unite the broken tribes beneath one will, his own.
Look at him, so weak!
A true disgrace.
Temujin's rise inspired loyalty and jealousy. His greatest enemy was not a foreign invader, but his own brother-in-arms, Jamuka. Their friendship became war, a clash of worlds. Jamuka fought for the old order of noble clans and blood privilege. Temujin fought for a new vision, a nation bound by merit and loyalty alone. The steppe could not serve two masters. In the storm that followed, Temujin's disciplined ranks shattered Jamuka's proud armies. When Jamuka was captured, he asked for a noble death without blood. Temujin granted it, the final mercy of a man who had outgrown vengeance. From that moment, the old world of the tribes was gone. On the banks of the Onon River in 1206, the chieftains gathered for the great Kurultai. There, Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the oceanic ruler. It was not a coronation, It was a revolution. He forged a new system, the decimal army. Every 10 men were bound by fate, every 100 by loyalty, every 1,000 by unbreakable trust. Failure of one meant the punishment of all. It was not cruelty, it was cohesion. Mounted on small tireless horses, his warriors became a living storm. Their bows could pierce armor at 200 meters. Their speed unmatched. Their discipline absolute. Each man carried remounts, fresh horses that turned distance into dust. Across the continent, their relay stations, the Yam, pulsed like veins of empire, carrying orders faster than any enemy could comprehend. This was not an army. It was a machine, the embodiment of his will. When the Khan turned his gaze south to the mighty Jin dynasty of China, walls and cities dared to defy him. He captured their engineers, learned their craft, and turned their own siege engines against them. Every conquest taught him something new, and each victory made the next inevitable. Those who surrendered lived to serve. Those who resisted vanished from history. Terror became a weapon sharper than any blade. He did not need to fight every city. Fear fought for him.
I ask only for a death that befits my station, without the shedding of blood.
You are the strength of this unit.
You are out of line, soldier.
When the Shah of Khwarazm murdered his envoys, Genghis Khan did not rage. He calculated.
Water!
His vengeance was a
Here, my
symphony
lord.
of strategy. In 1219, his army struck from multiple directions, overwhelming the vast empire of Persia and Central Asia. While his generals pinned the enemy, Genghis led 2 divisions across the Kizilkum Desert, a land the Shah thought impassable. They emerged from the sands like ghosts and descended upon Bukhara and Samarkand. It was not merely victory, it was annihilation. The Shah fled his own empire, dying in exile, while the Mongol banners spread from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. Genghis Khan had turned mobility into warfare itself. His campaigns flowed like rivers, unstoppable and without pause. By 1225, one man had reshaped the map of the world.
Speak! We understand.
يا سيقي لفصوك خد وسمد أسد وقد أسد.
This is where we make our stand.
It is a daring plan, my Khan.
They're here!
Having conquered by sword, Genghis Khan now sought to rule by order. He created the great Yassa, a code that bound princes and peasants alike. It decreed justice without privilege, religious freedom, and the sanctity of trade. Under his reign, merchants crossed continents unafraid. The Silk Road, once a corridor of peril, became a highway of prosperity. Ideas, inventions, and cultures flowed freely. Gunpowder to the west, medicine to the east. The terror of his conquest had birthed an age of peace, the Pax Mongolica. To see him only as a destroyer is to misunderstand him. He was a builder of systems, a visionary who believed he served the will of the eternal blue sky, bringing order to a fractured world through brutal unity. He died not in his homeland, but on campaign, ever the soldier, forever in motion. His grave was hidden, his name eternal. Yet his empire endured,
together,
carried on by his sons and generals,
For our
outliving
new
the
home,
man who conceived
for
it.
me
The
and
outcast slave had become a lawgiver, a conqueror, and the architect of a world reborn through fire. echo of his footsteps still stirs the dust of the steppe. The empire has long vanished, but the networks he forged of trade, ideas, and fear still shape our world. One man's will, tempered by suffering and sharpened by vision, proved that from the smallest beginnings can rise a force vast enough to reshape civilization itself. The boy named Temujin became Genghis Khan, not a man of his time, but the maker of a new one,